ARMY screaming in disbelief. Was this really just karaoke? Or the most dangerous preview of an unreleased BTS song yet? Was it truly an innocent burst of late-night karaoke energy? Or did the voices of V and Jungkook accidentally open a door that was never meant to be opened? At least not yet. That single question has been echoing relentlessly across timelines, group chats, and fan forums since a short but explosive Weverse live clip shattered the fragile calm of BTS's Chapter 2 era. 50 seconds. That was all it took. 50 seconds of melody, tone, and emotion so precise that ARMY around the world collectively froze, rewound, replayed, and then asked the same dangerous question in unison. This isn't normal. So what exactly did we just hear? On December 19th, 2025, a seemingly casual live broadcast on Weverse turned into something far bigger than anyone, perhaps even the members themselves, had anticipated. The clip, later amplified by the chart-focused account Chartsdalic, showed V and Jungkook singing together in a dimly lit room washed in maroon tones, seated on a sofa alongside Jeon. No stage.
No microphones. No announcement.
No warning. Just voices. And yet, the reaction was immediate and volcanic. Within hours, the video surged past hundreds of thousands of views, racking up likes, reposts, and comments that read less like casual fandom chatter and more like urgent decoding attempts. Why did this feel different? Why did seasoned fans, people who have lived through teasers, leaks, surprise drops, and industry-level misdirection, suddenly sound panicked? Why were comments no longer just screaming excitement, but dissecting chord progressions, melodic contours, and vocal phrasing as if this were a crime scene? Because for ARMY with trained ears, this didn't sound like improvisation. It sounded familiar. And unfamiliar at the same time. From the very first note V sang while standing, there was a structure that felt intentional. The melody didn't wander. It didn't collapse into laughter or dissolve into playful chaos, as spontaneous karaoke often does. Instead, it held. It resolved. When Jungkook joined in, his voice slipping into harmony with that instinctive precision fans know too well, the tension intensified. This wasn't two friends joking around. This was two vocalists locking into something that already existed somewhere beyond that room. Was it a demo? A discarded melody from years ago? A song written during the height of BTS's global domination and quietly archived? Or something far more unsettling for fans and thrilling at the same time? A preview of a project that HYB has not announced, teased, or even hinted at? The theories erupted instantly. On X, formerly Twitter, timelines filled with slowed-down audio, pitch analyses, and side-by-side comparisons with older BTS tracks. Fans began pulling references from eras that felt distant, yet strangely connected. Melodic echoes reminiscent of emotional B-sides, chord progressions that aligned suspiciously well with Jungkook's post-Golden vocal maturity, and a tonal color in V's voice that sounded closer to cinematic storytelling than casual play. And then there was the environment. The room itself became part of the mystery. Dim lighting, casual clothing, a sense of privacy that felt too intimate for something meant to be purely throwaway. Why were they so relaxed? Why did Jin's presence, quiet, observant, grounding, make the moment feel even more deliberate? Fans began whispering about taehyung, a trio rarely seen together in such an unguarded setting since BTS shifted focus towards solo activities. Was this just a reunion hangout? Or was this the kind of gathering where music is shared informally before the world ever hears it officially? As the clip continued to circulate, comments grew increasingly unhinged in the most ARMY way possible. One fan wrote that this felt like the closest we are getting to a taehyung subunit, while another joked, half seriously, that translator armies must have been sleeping because no words could possibly capture what was happening anyway. Beneath the humor, though, was something raw and unmistakable. Longing. Longing for togetherness. Longing for voices that once filled stadiums now echoing softly through a phone screen. The timing only added fuel to the fire. BTS, deep in their Chapter 2 era, have been navigating solo artistry with remarkable success. V's 2023 album Layover revealed a quieter, jazz-inflected emotional depth that redefined how many viewed his musical identity. Jungkook's Golden, released the same year, cemented his status as a global pop force with mainstream appeal and technical brilliance. These weren't side projects. These were statements. And yet, hearing their voices intertwine again, even briefly, felt like muscle memory awakening. Could this have been a leftover demo from before their solo paths fully diverged? Or was it something newer, born from late-night conversations, shared reflections, and a renewed desire to create together without pressure? Fans noticed how Jungkook's phrasing leaned into V's tone instead of overpowering it, how V adjusted his delivery to meet Jungkook's rhythm. That kind of instinctive synchronization doesn't come from coincidence. It comes from history, from trust, from countless hours of singing together when no cameras were watching. And then there's the most dangerous question of all. If this was truly just karaoke, why did it feel so complete? Karaoke doesn't usually provoke analysis, threads stretching thousands of words long. Karaoke doesn't make fans compare harmonic structures to unreleased demos rumored to exist in HYB's archives. Karaoke doesn't make people whisper about 2026 comebacks months, even years, before anything is confirmed. Perhaps that's the real reason ARMY is screaming. Not because they believe a song was leaked. Not because they think HYB made a mistake. But because for a brief, fragile moment, the boundary between the past, the present, and the future collapsed. In those 50 seconds, fans weren't just hearing voices. They were hearing possibility. Was this a preview of what BTS could sound like when they return? Was this a hint that collaboration among members isn't as distant as silence might suggest? Or was this simply a reminder, gentle, almost cruel, that even in separation, the core of BTS remains intact? As of now, there's been no official statement.
No clarification. No denial.
The clip remains what it is, a fragment. A question mark suspended in melody. And maybe that's exactly why it's so powerful. In an industry built on schedules, teasers, and calculated reveals, this moment arrived unannounced, unpolished, and uncontrollable. ARMY will continue to analyze. They will continue to speculate. They will continue to ask whether what they heard was an accident or an omen. And until V, Jungkook, or HYB decide to speak, that question will linger, unresolved and intoxicating. Was this really just karaoke? Or did BTS quietly let the future slip through their voices for 50 unforgettable seconds? The silence that followed was almost louder than the singing itself. After the live ended, after the clip stopped looping, after the timelines briefly caught their breath, something shifted inside the fandom. It wasn't just excitement anymore. It was unease mixed with hope, curiosity tangled with fear. Because ARMY knows BTS too well to believe in coincidences, yet knows the industry too well to trust assumptions. And that is where the tension truly began. Why would voices like those appear without consequence? Why would a melody that sounded so emotionally resolved be shared so casually, if it truly meant nothing? Fans began to revisit the clip not as spectators, but as investigators. The way V's voice opened the phrase was soft but deliberate, not searching for a key, not testing the air. The way Jungkook entered wasn't playful interruption, it was alignment. Even the pacing felt measured, as if the song knew exactly where it was going, even if listeners did not. Some ARMY pointed out something even more unsettling. There was no laughter cutting the melody short. No joking comment of "this is random" or "we're just messing around." The energy in the room was calm, almost reverent. Jin's presence, quiet and grounding, didn't disrupt the moment. He let it breathe. And that choice alone sent fans spiraling. Since when does Jin, the king of breaking tension, sit back silently unless the moment deserves respect? As the hours passed, theories evolved. The early excitement morphed into deeper speculation. Some fans recalled interviews from years ago where members admitted they had dozens of unfinished demos, melodies recorded on phones, half-written choruses that never found their moment. Others brought up how certain BTS songs were born from casual late-night sessions that were never meant to be public, until they were. Was this one of those ghosts resurfacing? Or was this something entirely new, testing the emotional waters before a future reveal? The phrase "unreleased" began trending alongside words like demo, unit, and preview. And that alone says everything. ARMY has heard countless lives, countless playful singing moments. Yet this one triggered alarms instead of comfort. Because comfort sounds familiar. This sounded intentional, and then came the emotional undercurrent that no analysis could fully explain. For fans who have endured the long stretch of separation, military service, solo schedules, and time zones that no longer align, this moment felt like a crack in the wall. Not a collapse, not a promise, just a crack. Enough to let light through. Enough to remind everyone what togetherness feels like, even when it lasts less than a minute. That is why the reactions weren't just joyful, they were almost desperate. Comments weren't saying, "This is cute." They were saying, "We need this. We are manifesting this. Please let this be real." Those aren't casual words. Those are the words of a fandom that understands how rare these intersections have become and how fragile they are. From an industry perspective, the timing is almost cruel. BTS's anticipated group comeback looms in the distance, whispered about in projections and interviews, often tied to the year 2026. Nothing official, nothing confirmed, just a horizon fans keep staring at. And suddenly, without warning, two voices from the heart of the group harmonize on a couch, as if the future briefly forgot to hide. Could this have been intentional fan service?
Possibly.
Could it have been a subconscious slip, a moment where muscle memory took over and years of shared artistry resurfaced without thinking? Also possible. But here's the part that unsettles even the most rational observers. BTS has always been aware of the weight their smallest actions carry. They know how a single note can ignite global conversation. They know how deeply ARMY listens. So if they chose to sing like that, in that way, knowing cameras were on, then the innocence argument becomes harder to hold. Still, no one is rushing to conclusions. Because BTS has taught ARMY patience as much as passion. The fandom knows better than to declare a comeback over 50 seconds of sound. And yet, they also know better than to dismiss instinct. BTS music has always lived in that space between intention and intuition. And this moment sits there perfectly, refusing to be labeled. What remains undeniable is the emotional aftermath. For many fans, this wasn't about charts, subunits, or announcements. It was about reassurance. Proof that despite distance, despite time, despite evolution, the connection remains unbroken. That V and Jungkook don't need a stage to sound like BTS. That Jeon doesn't need to speak for his presence to matter. That the essence of the group still exists in rooms without spotlights. As days pass, and the clip continues to resurface, one question refuses to fade. If this truly meant nothing, why does it still feel like something? Why does it linger? Why does it refuse to settle into memory like other casual lives have? Maybe the answer isn't about whether the song was unreleased. Maybe the real shock is that ARMY was reminded, without warning, of what it feels like to hear BTS not as a concept, not as a future plan, but as a living, breathing reality. And perhaps that is the most dangerous preview of all. What happened next was not explosive, but it was telling. There was no follow-up clarification from the members.
No joking dismissal.
"No, we were just messing around," caption added later to soften the impact. The moment was allowed to exist on its own, untouched. And in the BTS universe, silence is never empty. Silence is space. Silence is permission. Silence is often where meaning grows. ARMY began to realize that the most unsettling part of this moment was not what was sung, but what was not said afterward. No one rushed to frame it. No one redirected the narrative. The clip was left floating, free to be interpreted, questioned, and emotionally processed. In an industry that usually rushes to control perception, that absence of control felt intentional, or at least respected. As days passed, fans noticed how the clip refused to fade. Algorithms kept resurfacing it. Reaction videos multiplied. Even casual listeners who weren't deeply embedded in BTS lore began asking why this short live felt heavier than most polished performances. Comment sections shifted tone, becoming quieter, more reflective. People weren't screaming as much anymore. They were confessing how much they missed the sound, confessing how this brief harmony reopened emotions they thought they had learned to manage, because that is the truth many fans are only now admitting. Chapter 2 taught ARMY how to be strong individually, just as the members were. It taught acceptance of distance, respect for growth, and pride in solo identity. But this moment peeled back a layer of emotional armor. It reminded fans that no amount of individual success can replace the specific ache of voices that grew together.